Today we're going to talk about Dr. Bettina Love's book, Welcome. The title of the book is We Want to Do More Than Survive, Abolitionist Teaching and the Pursuit of Educational Freedom. So the basis of this book is that Dr. Bettina Love begins by quoting W.E. Du Bois, who talks about darkness, the skin color, and how this has afforded little in terms of freedom for people who are dark or brown. So Dr. Bettina Love sets up the framework in chapter 1. And she sets up the framework in this way. She talks about how it is that in order for anybody else to matter to us, we have to matter to ourselves. And goes on to define what mattering is. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later. But the framework of her work is also intersectionality, which is based on the work of Kimberly Crenshaw. And for those of you who don't know about intersectionality, what it is, it's a framework to look at power structures and systems of oppression. And the idea is that the more identities a person holds that are oppressed, the more oppression that they suffer. And it goes on a spectrum, I guess. One of the examples she gives to illustrate this point is that first, she speaks of Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. And for those of you who know what happened with that, Anita Hill accused him of sexual harassment, and it was back in the 90s, a little bit beyond most of your lives. But so what happens is that he there's a court proceedings, and I don't know the details, but I know that this is what happened. So there's court proceedings, and so she accuses him of sexual harassment, and he retorts with the idea that he's being, and this is how it's said, technologically blacklisted, that because he's a black man in power, that he just wants to, they want to bring him down. And so Anita Hill, being a black woman who's experienced sexual trauma and is powerless, basically, in the face of a man with more power. Another example is she talks about intersectionality, and to illustrate the point of intersectionality, how it works, is that it's not just really about race, that there's complex interaction of identities that situates us in a position of less power in relation to others. One of the other ones she mentions is how doctors have different wages, right? So you have white male doctors at the top of the hierarchy earning a lot, about $20,000 more than black male doctors, and then you have white female doctors, and at the bottom of them, black female doctors. So all of this is to say that she wants to bring attention to all of those places of oppression, and how the idea of racism and oppression are really complex issues, and that they're not as simple as basically white and black. And this work is to bring attention to how systems like the education system bring about oppression, and sometimes even continue oppression. And an example that she gives for this is that expulsions. She mentions that the different rates of expulsion, and white women have 0 expulsions, while Black women or Black girls, because she does talk about them as girls. White women, white girls, and Black girls are different. That Black girls are seen as all the negative stereotypes of Black women, so they are more likely to be expelled. And this is how much I've read so far. But I'm interested in seeing where she takes it, because it really is intriguing to know how. I think I know that it exists, and I know that these systems of oppression are there. And I'm interested in seeing how she analyzes it, how she deals with the information. But I'm also interested, and most interested really, is on what can teachers do to counteract years and years of this. At some point at the beginning of the book, she said, in the initial chapter, she says something like, white people can't understand what it has been for Black people to live with 400 years of dreams and have those dreams be actualized. I think that's the quote. I'm trying to remember what it says. If I can read it to you, it might make more sense. Abolitionist joy. So, she says, okay, so in page 2, it says, this book is about mattering, surviving, thriving, healing, imagining, freedom, love, and joy. All elements of abolitionist work and teaching. Abolitionist teaching is the practice of working in solidarity with communities of color while drawing on the imagination, creativity, refusal, remembering, visionary thinking, healing, rebellious spirit, boldness, determination, and subversiveness of abolitionists to eradicate injustice in and outside of schools. And she poses a great deal of questions from the beginning, but it really makes you think, and I'm going to read some of them because they're just too good to miss. To begin the work of abolitionist teaching and fighting for justice, the idea of mattering is essential, in that you must matter enough to yourself, to your students, mattering essential students, and to your students' community to fight. But for dark people, the very basic idea of mattering is sometimes hard to conceptualize when your country finds you disposable. How do you matter to a country that is at once obsessed but dismissive about how it kills you? How do you matter to a country that would rather incarcerate you than educate you? How do you matter to a country that poisons your child's drinking water? How do you matter to a country that sees your skin as a weapon? How do you matter to a country that steals your land, breaks treaty, and then calls you a savage? How do you matter to a country that tears families apart because of arbitrary lines that instill terror, violence, and geographical separation rather than a compassion for humanity? How do you matter to a country that will ban you because of how you pray and who you pray to? How do you matter to a country that ultimately only sees you as property or commodity? How do you matter to a country that rips children out of hands of their parents and locks them in dog cages for seeking a better life? How do you matter to a country that measures your knowledge against the gap it created? How do you matter to a country that labels you a model minority in order to feel anti-blackness? How do you matter to a country that would rather teachers with armed teachers with rocks than to have courageous conversations with itself about gun control, eliminating guns, and white male rage? How do you matter to a country where the idea of consent seems alien to the conquering culture? How do you matter to a country where the president calls immigrants animals, particularly those from Mexico? How do you matter to a country where Betsy DeVos, a billionaire, Harris, and staunch advocate for privatizing public education, who refuses to protect our most vulnerable students in public schools, is the Secretary of Education? How do you matter to a country that is incapable of loving dark bodies and therefore incapable of loving you? We who are dark are complex. We are more than our skin hues of black and brown. We intersect our moonlit darkness with our cultures, languages, races, genders, sexualities, abilities, religions, and spirituality. Our complicated identities cannot be discussed or examined in isolation of one another. These identity complexities, which create a multifaceted range of beings, must matter too. So this is it for now. I hope you enjoyed it and are picked and want to read more about Dr. Bettina Love's book. I highly recommend it. It's a great read. It's especially because this is the world we're living in, and it's important to know what are we up against in terms of structural and systemic barriers to helping children. Because I myself got into teaching because I see teaching as a way to a social justice tool. I think that the more informed we are about our choices, we can make better choices for ourselves. And it's not about imposing one way of living or one way of being within this society. It's more about let's inform you about what options you have so that you can make the better decision for yourself. And I think this book does that, in that it gives you information about how to be a teacher that affects change on a deeper level, to the culture at large, and much needed change. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.